What if everything you thought you knew about Meghan Markle was a carefully constructed illusion? What if the woman the world watched marry into royalty, the poised duchess who seemed devoted to charity and the monarchy, had another ambition entirely, one that had nothing to do with Windsor Castle and everything to do with Washington, D.C.? Imagine Tucker Carlson sitting in his studio, documents in hand, eyes widening with disbelief. This was no ordinary royal scandal. This was a revelation that could shake not only the monarchy, but the very corridors of political power across the Atlantic. The world has long been fascinated by Meghan Markle. From her days as an actress in Hollywood to her whirlwind romance with Prince Harry, she captivated global attention. Her every move was scrutinized, every statement dissected. Fans admired her for modernizing the monarchy. Critics vilified her for disrupting tradition. But behind the carefully curated public image, according to leaked documents now surfacing, a secret strategy was quietly taking shape. A strategy that would position Meghan not just as a figurehead of royal glamour, but as a player in the U.S. political arena. Yes, while she appeared to step back from royal duties, claiming the life of a private citizen, the reality painted by these files tells a story of ambition, calculated networking, and influence building that few could have imagined. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. You might be wondering, how could this even be possible? How could someone balance the public image of royal grace with clandestine political maneuvering? It begins with understanding the power of a title. Meghan's royal status, her connection to the British monarchy, opened doors that others could only dream of. When a woman with the Duchess of Sussex's name enters a room, the reactions are instant: attention, credibility, influence. In the U.S., these are commodities currency can't buy. And according to the documents Tucker Carlson has uncovered, Meghan recognized this power and wielded it with precision, using her title not merely as a symbol of prestige, but as leverage to build relationships with key political operatives, strategists, and influencers in Washington. The story is more intricate than a simple tale of ambition. There are layers of deception, misdirection, and timing. Publicly, Meghan appeared to focus on activism, charitable initiatives, and media projects that painted her as a humanitarian figure. She spoke passionately about women's rights, social justice, and environmental issues. Her speeches were polished, her messaging consistent, her image impeccable. Yet behind closed doors, according to these leaks, there were meetings, correspondence, and strategic conversations aimed at laying the groundwork for a potential political campaign. Sources suggest she was exploring connections that could one day serve as the foundation for a U.S. Senate run, an audacious move that would leverage her royal identity while presenting herself as a private, independent actor. The duality is striking. Publicly a former duchess advocating for noble causes, privately a strategist building a political network in a foreign country. And then there's Tucker Carlson's reaction. Known for his measured skepticism and analytical rigor, Carlson was reportedly floored. This wasn't a mere rumor, a tabloid whisper, or speculative reporting. These were documents, emails, memos, contact lists, and strategic outlines that suggested a meticulous and deliberate effort to create political influence. The files appear to show not just casual outreach, but a systematic approach, identifying key operatives, arranging meetings, gauging support, and considering timing, all while maintaining the facade of a private citizen. Carlson's disbelief is understandable. For someone who has seen countless scandals, the audacity of this alleged plan was staggering. It's one thing for a royal to step back from duties. It's another to apparently plot a political trajectory across the Atlantic, all while preserving a carefully controlled public image. Why does this matter now? The timing of these revelations couldn't be more explosive. Meghan's media ventures, philanthropic initiatives, and public appearances continue to attract attention. Meanwhile, Prince Harry remains in the public eye, often speaking about personal struggles and advocacy. The contrast between the public narratives and the alleged private ambitions raises uncomfortable questions about transparency, loyalty, and intent. And for the monarchy, the potential misuse of a royal title for political influence in another country threatens not only public perception, but also the institution's stability. What happens when private ambition collides with centuries-old tradition? How do public trust, family loyalty, and personal aspiration intersect, and sometimes collide, in ways that can have real-world consequences. The leaked files reportedly detail an intricate strategy, including outreach to well-connected individuals, potential advisors, and operatives in political think tanks. They suggest an understanding of timing, optics, and media influence. Meghan's alleged approach appears methodical, carefully cultivating relationships, understanding the levers of power, and positioning herself as both an insider with credibility and an independent actor. It's a paradoxical dance, balancing the weight of a royal title with the need for political legitimacy in a different nation's system. These documents, if authentic, offer a rare window into the kind of strategic thinking that most political operatives spend years mastering. And it's a window into a story the public has never been told, until now. Consider the implications. If these reports are accurate, they challenge long-held perceptions. Meghan's image as a private citizen dedicated to charity and activism might be only one side of the story. Beneath the surface, there may have been a calculated, forward-looking strategy to wield influence in a high-stakes political environment. The documents suggest she understood the unique advantages her status provided and used them to pursue a broader agenda, one that could impact policy, perception, and power far beyond her immediate surroundings. It's a story that questions the very nature of public image versus private intent. How often do we believe what we see at face value, only to discover a deeper, more complex reality? Tucker Carlson's coverage adds another layer of intrigue. As a seasoned journalist, his interpretation of the evidence is meticulous, probing, and unflinching. He raises questions that echo what millions of viewers might be thinking. Was Meghan's activism purely altruistic or part of a larger, strategic ambition? How do we reconcile her royal connections with her political aspirations? And most importantly, what does this mean for the monarchy, for public trust, and for the broader geopolitical context when private influence crosses national boundaries? Carlson doesn't simply report. He dissects, analyzes, and contextualizes, making the audience feel the weight of the revelations alongside him. Even more compelling is the contrast between public statements and private actions. While Meghan's media messaging projects empathy, advocacy, and concern for societal issues, the leaked files suggest a parallel narrative, one of planning, outreach, and ambition that extends far beyond Windsor Castle. It's a tension between narrative and reality, image and intent. Audiences are left questioning. How much of what we see in the media is genuine, and how much is carefully curated to serve a strategic purpose? This isn't simply a story about a royal couple making headlines. It's a story about power, perception, and the delicate interplay between personal ambition and public scrutiny. By the end of this introduction, the stakes are clear: a secret network, political ambitions in a foreign nation, a royal title used as leverage, and a world watching without knowing the full story. And the most shocking revelations are still to come. The leaked files reportedly contain detailed evidence, emails, meeting notes, and strategic outlines that paint a picture of a plan unfolding over months, perhaps years. These are not trivial communications. They suggest intent, preparation, and foresight. As viewers, we are invited into a story that challenges assumptions, provokes thought, and demands attention. The narrative promises drama, tension, and the kind of revelations that leave a lasting impression. But what comes next will change everything, and no one saw it coming. The documents reveal layers of strategy, ambition, and influence that force us to reconsider what we thought we knew about Meghan Markle, about the monarchy, and about the very nature of power in an interconnected world. This is just the beginning. The deeper we go, the more astonishing the revelations, the more intricate the web of connections, and the more questions we are left asking. How did Meghan navigate these dual roles? Who were her allies? What risks did she take? And, most importantly, what does this mean for the future of both the monarchy and the political landscape she allegedly sought to enter? The stage is set. The players are revealed. The stakes are unprecedented. And as we follow the story, chapter by chapter, the tension will build, the surprises will unfold, and the truth, whatever it may ultimately be, will demand our full attention. This is the story Tucker Carlson stumbled upon, a story that has left him speechless, and one that has the potential to change how we view Meghan Markle forever. Tucker Carlson leaned back in his chair, the kind of moment every journalist dreams of and dreads at the same time. Before him lay a folder of documents that seemed almost too explosive to be true. As he opened the first envelope, a chill ran down his spine. These weren't mere whispers from tabloids, unverified rumors, or the kind of speculative gossip that fills morning shows. These were carefully compiled files, emails, memos, contact lists, and notes that painted a picture of Meghan Markle not just as a former duchess, but as a clandestine strategist, plotting a path into U.S. politics while publicly presenting herself as a private citizen. The room was silent except for the rustle of paper. Tucker's eyes scanned the first page, meeting requests, names of political operatives, and strategic talking points that hinted at long-term planning. She wanted power in Washington, not Windsor, he murmured, almost to himself. His usual analytical composure faltered. This was unprecedented. A royal using her title to forge political connections in another country, behind the scenes, under the radar, and while claiming neutrality, was a revelation that could send shockwaves on both sides of the Atlantic. The files suggested months, if not years, of meticulous planning. There were notes about potential allies and think tanks, lobbyists who could facilitate introductions, and media strategists who could help craft an image of credibility and independence. One email outlined a hypothetical campaign strategy, detailing how a royal name could open doors in political circles while maintaining a public persona that appeared apolitical. The audacity was staggering. Who else could walk into rooms that most politicians could only dream of accessing, simply because of a title? And who else would have the ambition to try? Tucker leaned forward, flipping through pages that listed names he recognized from both political and social circles. There were senators, former campaign advisors, policy consultants, all allegedly corresponding with Meghan or her close aides. Each entry was dated, annotated, and cross-referenced, suggesting a deliberate effort to track interactions, gauge influence, and plan next steps. It wasn't the haphazard networking one might expect from someone testing waters. It was structured, strategic, and calculated. The files read like a blueprint for influence, a map showing how to navigate political landscapes in a foreign country with precision, foresight, and purpose. As Tucker digested the information, his mind raced. This wasn't simply a story about a royal figure stepping back from duties and exploring personal ventures. This was about ambition intersecting with privilege, power, and secrecy. Meghan's public image, gracious, philanthropic, and focused on charitable causes, clashed starkly with the narrative emerging from these documents. The contrast was electric. It raised questions not only about her intentions, but also about the ethics of leveraging a royal title for political influence abroad. And for Tucker, it posed a deeper, more personal question. How do you report on something this explosive without tipping into speculation, while still conveying the gravity of what these files suggest? He paused, reflecting on one particular memo that outlined a relationship-building strategy. It mentioned scheduled conversations with political consultants, invitations to private events, and targeted media appearances, all designed to cultivate credibility in Washington. The memo even referenced timing, suggesting that every move was calculated to coincide with political cycles, media attention, and personal visibility. Tucker's fingers hovered over the paper. The meticulous nature of the plan indicated foresight, intelligence, and ambition. It also suggested that Meghan was more than a passive observer. She was actively engaged in crafting her path. And then there was the emotional weight of it. Tucker felt a mix of disbelief, astonishment, and even a twinge of anger, not at Meghan personally, but at the audacity of the plan and the implications it carried. These weren't trivial communications. They suggested a dual life, one presented to the public, polished and carefully managed, and one conducted behind closed doors, deliberate and strategic. For viewers, this dichotomy would be jaw-dropping. For Tucker, it meant navigating the story with the kind of nuance and clarity that would allow audiences to grasp its complexity without being misled. The documents also revealed layers of secrecy. Notes referenced confidentiality, discretion, and the necessity of avoiding public scrutiny. Meetings were suggested at neutral locations, communications were routed through trusted intermediaries, and records were carefully managed. It was a playbook for influence, but one designed to remain invisible to the casual observer. For Tucker, Uncovering these hidden strategies was like finding a secret map leading to a treasure that no one knew existed. Except, in this case, the treasure wasn't gold. It was access, influence, and the potential to shape narratives across two nations. One of the most astonishing pieces of evidence was a series of emails outlining potential political ambitions. The language was measured but ambitious. Assess feasibility, one note read. Identify key supporters. Align with media messaging. Maintain public neutrality. The file suggested that Meghan was exploring, hypothetically, how her royal experience and public persona could be transformed into a political platform. The boldness of even considering such a move was striking. It wasn't just audacious, it was historic. No royal in recent memory had allegedly attempted to leverage their status for direct political influence in a foreign nation while publicly claiming neutrality. Tucker's reporting instincts kicked in. He knew the story would captivate audiences because it combined elements that are irresistible: royalty, secrecy, ambition, political intrigue, and media manipulation. He also recognized the delicate balance required to present the facts accurately while maintaining narrative tension. This wasn't about sensationalism for the sake of clicks. It was about uncovering a story with far-reaching implications. Each revelation, each document, each name carried weight. Each could spark discussions, debates, and even controversy. As the night wore on, Tucker continued sifting through the files, piecing together a timeline of alleged actions. Meetings in private residences, calls with political operatives, outreach to media consultants, all while Meghan's public persona remained flawless, untouchable, and seemingly detached from politics. It was a juxtaposition that would shock audiences and challenge perceptions. Here was a woman navigating the corridors of power with stealth, precision, and intent, while the world applauded her for philanthropy and public appearances. And then, perhaps most chillingly, Tucker realized the broader implications. If these documents were accurate, they suggested not just ambition but influence, preparation, and potential leverage over political decisions. The idea that a royal could quietly position herself to exert influence in U.S. politics raised questions about transparency, ethics, and the blurred lines between privilege and power. For Tucker, it was a story that demanded careful, compelling storytelling, one that could convey the gravity of the situation while keeping viewers on the edge of their seats. He looked back at the first envelope, now empty, the pages spread across his desk like a mosaic of intrigue. The initial shock had passed, replaced by a sense of urgency. These documents were more than just evidence. They were a roadmap to understanding a complex, concealed narrative. And as Tucker prepared to present this story to his audience, one thought lingered. How would the public react when they learned that Meghan Markle, the Duchess-turned-private citizen, may have been quietly plotting a political trajectory in the United States? The answer, he knew, would be explosive. But what he found next would make even the seasoned journalist freeze. A name, a date, and a connection that tied Meghan directly to an influential political circle, suggesting that her ambitions were more than hypothetical. And this was only the beginning. The web of intrigue was just starting to unravel, and the next revelation would leave viewers, and Tucker himself, speechless. From the outside, Meghan Markle's life looked like a storybook come to life. She was the American actress who had charmed her way into the hearts of millions, only to marry Prince Harry and step into a world steeped in centuries of tradition, protocol, and scrutiny. Cameras followed her every move. Paparazzi snapped photos of her wardrobe choices, her public appearances, and even casual strolls with the couple's dog. Headlines praised her modern approach to monarchy, while critics accused her of disrupting a centuries-old institution. But as Tucker Carlson's investigation, and now these leaked documents, reveals, the life the world saw may have been only half the story. Behind the public persona lurked private ambitions that were deliberate, calculated, and potentially transformative. To understand this duality, one must first grasp the power of perception. Meghan's public persona was carefully curated. The glamorous Duchess, poised and articulate, an advocate for women's rights, a supporter of social causes, and a devoted partner to Prince Harry. She gave speeches, attended charity events, and cultivated an image of empathy and modernity. Audiences admired her, and critics, whether begrudgingly or openly, acknowledged her media savvy. Her every move was a lesson in public relations mastery, timing, messaging, and optics executed with precision. Yet, according to the documents Tucker Carlson uncovered, this persona may have served a dual purpose. It wasn't just about public perception. It was a cover for private maneuvers, strategic positioning, and a quietly ambitious agenda aimed at expanding her influence beyond the monarchy and across the Atlantic. The contrast between public image and private action is both fascinating and unnerving. On one hand, Meghan's speeches championed humanitarian causes. She spoke passionately about social justice, mental health, and global inequality. She seemed to embody a new era of royal activism. On the other hand, the documents suggest a parallel narrative, a carefully orchestrated strategy to build political connections in the United States. Emails, memos, and meeting notes indicate she was in contact with political operatives, strategists, and influencers, quietly exploring avenues to leverage her royal title for influence while publicly claiming neutrality. It's a paradox. The world saw a duchess stepping back from royal life to pursue private endeavors, while privately, she was allegedly laying the groundwork for a political future. Consider the implications of such duality. Publicly, Meghan projected empathy and activism, carefully aligning herself with causes that resonated with global audiences. Privately, she allegedly explored the mechanics of power, who to contact, which networks to join, and how to position herself in a foreign political system. The audacity of this plan is staggering. Who else could wield a royal title as a form of leverage in another country, building credibility while presenting themselves as a private, independent figure? The documents suggest that Meghan understood both the optics and the influence inherent in her position, and she used that understanding to advance her ambitions discreetly. Tucker Carlson's reporting emphasizes this tension between persona and ambition. As he examined the leaked files, he realized that Meghan's public statements often contradicted her private actions. For instance, while publicly claiming to focus on humanitarian work and maintaining a neutral stance in political matters, the documents revealed meetings with U.S. political operatives discussing potential campaigns, outreach strategies, and influence building. Emails suggested she was exploring alliances with think tanks, lobbyists, and media consultants, all with an eye toward positioning herself as a credible figure in Washington. The dual narrative is almost theatrical in its precision, a life lived publicly under one guise, while privately moving pieces on a political chessboard. One of the most revealing aspects of these leaks is the meticulous nature of the planning. The documents include contact lists, potential allies, and even proposed timelines for engagement. Notes suggest careful consideration of media messaging, the sequencing of meetings, and strategies for maintaining discretion. Meghan allegedly understood the delicate balance between public exposure and private maneuvering. Every email, memo, and note hints at a mind attuned to both optics and influence, aware that perception and strategy must align to achieve her goals. It's a sophistication that few outside professional political circles might expect, especially from someone whose public identity was defined by royalty rather than electoral politics. Emotional beats are crucial to understanding the gravity of this dichotomy. For supporters who admired Meghan's public persona, these revelations may feel like a betrayal. The idea that a beloved public figure might have been secretly orchestrating political influence behind the scenes challenges the trust audiences place in appearances. For critics, the documents provide confirmation of suspicions about her ambition, strategy, and willingness to operate behind the scenes. For Tucker Carlson, and by extension his viewers, the story presents a complex, multi-layered narrative, one that demands careful unpacking and measured analysis. Another striking element is the contrast between Meghan's life in the UK and her alleged ambitions in the US. In Windsor Castle, she was a duchess bound by protocol, expected to follow a strict set of duties and traditions. In Washington, she was apparently exploring influence without the same constraints, using her royal connections to gain access, credibility, and support. The documents suggest that she recognized the unique opportunities afforded by her status. Doors that would remain closed to ordinary citizens opened readily because of her title. It's a lesson in understanding leverage, and if the allegations are accurate, a masterclass in applying it to new domains. Tucker also highlights the calculated nature of public messaging. Meghan's media appearances, interviews, and speeches were reportedly synchronized with her private networking efforts. This coordination suggests an awareness of narrative, optics, and timing. The public persona wasn't accidental. It was strategic, designed to maintain a credible image while her behind-the-scenes actions progressed. Audiences, whether knowingly or not, were part of a carefully managed narrative, one that masked the depth of her ambitions. The contrast between what the world saw and what the documents revealed creates a tension that is both compelling and disquieting. Moreover, the files hint at the emotional intelligence behind Meghan's strategy. Emails indicate she considered the perspectives of various stakeholders, gauged potential reactions, and planned her communications accordingly. She allegedly anticipated scrutiny, managed potential conflicts of interest, and carefully navigated public perception. This is not the behavior of someone engaging casually with political networks. It suggests deliberate planning, foresight, and a clear understanding of the stakes. It's a level of strategic sophistication that raises questions about intent, timing, and the broader implications of leveraging a royal title for influence. For viewers, the tension between public persona and private ambition invites reflection. How often do we accept appearances at face value, only to discover hidden agendas? How do we reconcile admiration for public figures with revelations about private actions? Meghan's story, as revealed through these leaks, challenges assumptions and encourages scrutiny. It's a narrative rich in contradiction, irony, and drama, a story that demands attention, analysis, and engagement. And yet, for all the detail the documents provide, the full scope of Meghan's alleged ambitions remains tantalizingly out of reach. There are hints, suggestions, and outlines, but the complete picture is complex, layered, and evolving. Tucker Carlson's reporting captures this tension. The story is both compelling and incomplete, leaving audiences eager for the next revelation. It's a narrative designed to provoke curiosity, challenge perceptions, and maintain engagement. As Chapter 2 closes, the audience is left questioning how much of Meghan Markle's public image was genuine, and how much was a calculated performance designed to support private ambitions. How did she navigate the duality of being a royal in the UK while allegedly positioning herself for influence in the US? And most provocatively, what does this duality tell us about the intersection of image, ambition, and power in a world where public perception is everything and private intentions can remain hidden? But what came next would reveal just how audacious these ambitions really were. An alleged plan that would stretch from media strategy to political maneuvering, shaking not just the monarchy, but the very idea of what a former royal could achieve on the world stage. The files Tucker Carlson uncovered didn't just hint at ambition, they mapped it. Names, dates, meetings, and conversations all pointed to one audacious plan. Meghan Markle, the former Duchess, quietly establishing a foothold in Washington, D.C. This wasn't casual networking. It was strategic, deliberate, and calculated, a move that could have positioned her in the heart of American political power while she maintained the image of a private citizen. As Tucker reviewed the details, the magnitude of the alleged plan began to sink in. At first glance, Washington's corridors of power might seem impenetrable to an outsider. Political operatives, lobbyists, media consultants, and influential donors form a tightly knit ecosystem. Relationships are built over years. Trust is earned through experience, and access is hard-won. Yet the documents suggest that Meghan's royal status opened doors that would otherwise remain closed. Her title, name recognition, and international profile acted as a key, granting her instant credibility in meetings that most political aspirants could only dream of attending. It's a kind of privilege that comes with both opportunity and scrutiny, and the leaked files imply that she was fully aware of both. One memo outlined a series of introductions to influential figures in D.C., including political strategists who had managed successful campaigns and advisors with direct ties to senior legislators. The notes weren't casual recommendations. They included tactical advice on how to approach each individual, the ideal timing for outreach, and suggested talking points. The documents read like a playbook. Identify the right people, establish rapport, leverage credibility, and maintain discretion. It was a systematic approach to influence building, reminiscent of strategies professional lobbyists or campaign managers employ. Except in this case, Meghan was reportedly navigating it from a unique vantage point as a former royal. The files also suggested methods for blending public activism with private strategy. For instance, meetings with key operatives were often framed around charitable initiatives, speaking engagements, or social causes. This allowed Meghan to pursue connections under a credible guise, reinforcing her public persona while quietly expanding her network. Emails hinted at a careful calibration. Every move had to support both the image of philanthropy and the objective of influence. Tucker Carlson noted that this dual approach created a tension between perception and intent, one that would challenge viewers' assumptions about what Meghan's actions truly signified. Among the documents were several communications highlighting potential political allies. Some were former campaign managers, others were influential advisors to sitting senators, and a few were individuals known for their behind-the-scenes power in shaping policy and media narratives. The files suggested Meghan was exploring how these relationships could eventually support a political trajectory, whether through endorsements, strategic advice, or access to decision-making circles. The sophistication of this network was notable. It wasn't a scattershot effort, but a carefully curated list of people whose influence could advance her goals. The Washington connection was not merely transactional, it was strategic. Notes in the files outlined the importance of cultivating trust and maintaining discretion, understanding the political landscape, and leveraging existing networks without exposing personal ambition prematurely. There was an emphasis on subtlety. Influence gained quietly, credibility established through social and professional channels, and visibility maintained through philanthropic and media engagements. The documents suggested that Meghan was aware of the stakes, the risks, and the opportunities inherent in navigating a foreign political ecosystem while maintaining her public persona. One particularly revealing set of emails detailed conversations about the optics of engagement. They discussed how to present herself to U.S. political figures, the messaging that would resonate most effectively, and the potential pitfalls of being perceived as a royal with political motives. The language was precise, the considerations methodical, and the ambition unmistakable. It portrayed a figure who understood that access alone was insufficient. Perception, timing, and messaging were equally critical in shaping influence. Tucker Carlson, reading these emails, reportedly described the sophistication as astonishing, noting that few outsiders would attempt such a calculated approach, and even fewer would have the global recognition to make it feasible. These files also included notes about potential speaking engagements, media appearances, and philanthropic events designed to intersect with political objectives. For example, attending high-profile conferences or panels could allow Meghan to meet influential figures in controlled environments, exchange ideas, and establish connections, all while reinforcing her public image as a socially conscious advocate. The dual purpose of these appearances was a recurring theme in the documents. Every public action served to build credibility, while every private interaction strengthened her network of influence. What made this alleged strategy even more remarkable was the apparent attention to detail in understanding the political culture. The documents referenced specific political cycles, key dates, and decision-making patterns. There was consideration of how to navigate partisan divides, cultivate allies across ideological lines, and avoid actions that could trigger public backlash. It suggested a level of political acumen uncommon even among experienced Washington insiders, a sophistication that raised questions about who was advising her and how much foresight she personally exercised in shaping these connections. The files also hint at an understanding of the media's role in reinforcing credibility. Public appearances, interviews, and social media messaging were reportedly aligned with private networking efforts, creating a seamless narrative that positioned Meghan as both influential and credible without overtly revealing her political intentions. This interplay between public visibility and private strategy is a hallmark of sophisticated influence campaigns, yet the fact that a former royal figure might be employing these tactics in the U.S. is what made the story explosive. Tucker Carlson emphasized this point repeatedly. The audacity of coordinating these dual efforts while maintaining a public image of neutrality was unprecedented. Equally intriguing were notes suggesting a network of allies prepared to provide guidance, support, and introductions. Some were longtime political consultants, others were experts in media strategy, and a few were individuals with direct connections to high-level policymakers. The files implied that Meghan was actively seeking mentors, advisors, and facilitators who could help her navigate unfamiliar terrain, maximize opportunities, and maintain discretion. This network wasn't casual. It was cultivated, deliberate, and targeted, with each relationship serving a potential strategic purpose. For the audience, the Washington connection adds a new dimension to the narrative. It transforms the story from one of royal intrigue into a tale of ambition, strategy, and cross-continental influence. It challenges assumptions about Meghan's public image, raises questions about the ethical boundaries of leveraging royal status, and provides a lens through which to examine the intersection of privilege and power. Viewers are left questioning, how much of what we see in media appearances reflects genuine intent versus strategic positioning? And how far would someone go to convert celebrity and title into influence within a complex political ecosystem? The emotional stakes are high. For supporters, revelations about the Washington connections might feel like a betrayal, a hidden layer that complicates admiration for Meghan's public persona. For skeptics, it offers evidence of a sophisticated, calculated ambition that validates suspicions about her motives. And for Tucker Carlson, the story represents a rare moment where the confluence of public image, private intent, and international implications converge in a way that is both dramatic and consequential. As the chapter closes, the full extent of Meghan's alleged Washington network remains tantalizingly elusive. The files provide glimpses, names, interactions, strategies, but the overall plan is layered, complex, and evolving. The connections suggest not only ambition but the potential to leverage relationships for broader influence, raising the stakes far beyond what the public narrative has ever suggested. But there was one name in these files, one connection that would shock everyone and suggest a level of strategic planning even more audacious than previously imagined. A link that could redefine how the world sees Meghan Markle and her ambitions in Washington. There is power in a name. Not just influence, not just recognition, but a kind of currency that opens doors, commands attention, and signals authority. Meghan Markle's royal title, Duchess of Sussex, was more than ceremonial. According to the leaked documents Tucker Carlson uncovered, it was a key asset, a tool deliberately leveraged to establish credibility in Washington, D.C., and beyond. What makes this revelation so shocking isn't merely the ambition. It's the audacity of using centuries of monarchical tradition as a stepping stone for influence in an entirely different political landscape. At first glance, it might seem unbelievable. Royals, after all, are expected to remain apolitical, bound by centuries of tradition and protocol. Yet the files suggest Meghan may have viewed her title differently, not as a constraint, but as a strategic advantage. In Washington, a royal title carries instant recognition, prestige, and intrigue. Meetings with political operatives and influential advisors could be arranged with relative ease. Introductions that others might spend years cultivating were allegedly facilitated simply by virtue of her name. The documents detail how her title could be positioned to confer credibility, making her presence in certain rooms seem both natural and authoritative, while keeping the perception of neutrality intact. One memo, for instance, outlined a perception strategy designed to present Meghan as an experienced, worldly figure with unique insights. Her royal experience, coupled with her public profile in media and philanthropy, could be framed as a form of expertise that lent weight to her engagements. The documents suggested that even casual meetings with key political figures could be leveraged to create the appearance of influence, signaling that she had access, networks, and authority without overtly stepping into the political arena. The subtlety of this strategy is striking. It relied not on overt declarations but on the implicit weight of a royal name, carefully timed appearances, and cultivated impressions. Tucker Carlson noted that the files even referenced the psychological impact of her title. The name, Duchess of Sussex, was more than just a formal designation. It was a symbol of lineage, sophistication, and global awareness. Emails suggested that operatives believed this symbolic authority could open doors that might otherwise remain closed, granting Meghan a level of credibility that few outsiders could achieve. For Washington insiders, the aura of royalty could signal prestige and seriousness, creating opportunities to be taken seriously even before a word was spoken. This wasn't accidental. It was strategic, intentional, and methodical. The emotional weight of this revelation is considerable. For supporters who admired Meghan's public work, the idea that her royal title may have been used strategically for influence could feel disconcerting. For critics, it validates suspicions about ambition and calculated action. The duality between public persona and private strategy becomes more tangible, illustrating a deliberate navigation of power dynamics that few outside political and social elites could even conceive. Tucker's reporting captures this tension. The story isn't just about privilege. It's about the deliberate application of that privilege in ways that challenge assumptions and provoke debate. Furthermore, the files suggest that Meghan's team considered how to manage potential scrutiny. Using a royal title to gain credibility in a foreign political environment carries inherent risks. Emails referenced careful messaging, timing, and discretion to avoid public or institutional backlash. The strategy appears to balance visibility and influence against exposure and criticism, a delicate dance that would require constant attention, foresight, and judgment. The meticulousness of this planning indicates that Meghan, or at least those advising her, understood the high stakes involved in leveraging symbolic authority for practical gain. There's also an element of irony and drama in the way the files portray this strategy. Royals are often expected to adhere to tradition, humility, and neutrality. Yet here, the very traits designed to limit political engagement were allegedly repurposed as tools of influence. The audacity of converting centuries of ceremonial authority into a mechanism for modern political networking adds a dramatic tension that is both compelling and unsettling. Tucker Carlson emphasized this juxtaposition repeatedly, noting how the files illuminate a world where perception, status, and strategy intertwine in unexpected ways. For viewers, the takeaway is clear. A royal title is not merely symbolic. It carries weight, creates opportunities, and can be leveraged in ways that extend far beyond ceremonial duties. Meghan's alleged use of her title to cultivate credibility and access in Washington represents a masterclass in understanding the mechanics of influence, optics, and perception. The implications stretch beyond the individual, raising questions about the ethical boundaries of status, the intersections of privilege and ambition, and the ways in which symbolic authority can translate into tangible power. And yet, for all the planning, sophistication, and strategic insight, the files hint at an even more audacious layer of ambition, one that goes beyond networking and influence building, pointing toward potential political engagement that would make the world question everything previously assumed about Meghan Markle. The documents suggest a trajectory that is as bold as it is unprecedented, setting the stage for revelations that could redefine public perception, challenge traditional narratives, and leave audiences questioning what is possible when status, strategy, and ambition intersect. But the most audacious part of this plan was yet to come, and it would reveal just how far Meghan's alleged ambitions extended, not just across oceans, but into the heart of American politics, where influence, timing, and credibility could determine the fate of an extraordinary and potentially unprecedented political journey. Imagine this: a royal, once adored for her charity work and poised public image, quietly considering a political campaign in the United States, a nation not her own. The very idea would make many pause in disbelief. But according to the documents Tucker Carlson uncovered, Meghan Markle may have gone further than anyone suspected. Emails, memos, and strategic notes hint at a meticulously considered blueprint for entering U.S. politics, potentially even a Senate run. The audacity is breathtaking. How could a former duchess, still tied by the lingering gravity of royalty, contemplate stepping directly into American political power? Yet the evidence suggests this was more than idle speculation. It was part of a calculated effort to leverage influence, perception, and networks in a foreign political ecosystem. The leaked documents contain outlines that read almost like campaign playbooks. There are references to timing, messaging, key contacts, and outreach strategies. Each entry is dated, annotated, and cross-referenced, suggesting a level of planning that goes beyond casual exploration. The files indicate an awareness of the electoral calendar, potential voter bases, and influential political figures who could support such an endeavor. According to these memos, every potential engagement was carefully weighed, including how it might be perceived publicly and how it could further private ambitions. It's the kind of strategic forethought that professional politicians spend years developing. Yet here it allegedly intersected with the life of a former royal navigating both public and private spheres. Some emails highlight conversations with political advisors and strategists about positioning. While publicly Meghan promoted causes related to women's empowerment, social justice, and humanitarian efforts, privately, she was reportedly exploring how these platforms could translate into political capital. The documents suggest she understood the optics required to be seen as credible in Washington, framing her experience as a duchess and media-savvy advocate as a form of expertise, emphasizing global awareness, and leveraging public engagement to strengthen perceived authority. It's a careful calibration, balancing a public persona with a private strategy designed to establish legitimacy. The files also hint at hypothetical scenarios. One memo outlines the steps necessary for assessing feasibility, identifying supporters, and exploring potential risks. The language is measured, deliberate, and strategic. Evaluate timing for campaign alignment. Identify key political endorsements. Leverage public engagements for credibility. These aren't vague aspirations. They're structured planning documents that suggest serious contemplation of political participation rather than casual curiosity. Tucker Carlson, reviewing the files, reportedly expressed astonishment at both the audacity and the detail, noting that few outsiders could have imagined such strategic foresight from someone balancing royal history with public image. What makes this narrative so compelling and potentially controversial is the apparent duality. Publicly, Meghan maintained the stance of a private citizen, stepping back from royal duties, engaging in media projects, and advocating for humanitarian causes. Privately, according to the documents, she explored a path that could place her at the center of American political power. Emails describe meetings with advisors on potential campaign structures, outreach strategies, and communications planning. Notes suggested a focus on cultivating credibility, aligning messaging with social causes, and navigating the political landscape in a way that minimized scrutiny while maximizing impact. It's a complex dance, and the sophistication of these alleged maneuvers is remarkable. Tucker's reporting emphasizes the role of discretion in these files. The documents often mention confidentiality, suggesting that every move was calculated to avoid public attention while quietly advancing strategic objectives. Proposed meetings were scheduled at private venues, communications routed through trusted intermediaries, and discussions framed as philanthropic or advisory engagements. The meticulousness of these preparations underscores the level of foresight involved. It wasn't casual ambition, it was a structured approach to influence, positioning, and potential political entry. The memos also reference potential supporters and allies. Some were political consultants with prior experience in Senate campaigns. Others were influential figures capable of providing introductions, guidance, and strategic advice. The files suggest Meghan's team understood the necessity of cultivating credible relationships to navigate a political environment as complex and high-stakes as Washington. Every contact, every conversation, and every potential endorsement was noted, assessed, and strategically aligned. It paints a picture of someone not only thinking about politics, but actively mapping the terrain to maximize advantage. Perhaps the most astonishing aspect of the alleged plan is the blending of royal identity with political credibility. The documents suggest that Meghan's title, international visibility, and media presence were not obstacles, but assets. In communications with advisors, she allegedly discussed how these attributes could be framed as expertise and authority, lending weight to her positions and engagements. Public appearances, philanthropic work, and media interviews were all reportedly coordinated to enhance credibility without revealing overt political ambition. The elegance of this strategy lies in its subtlety. Influence cultivated quietly, legitimacy built through perception, and ambition veiled behind public service. For viewers, the implications are staggering. A former royal leveraging her title, visibility, and networks to potentially enter U.S. politics raises questions about ethics, perception, and strategy. How does one balance public admiration with private ambition? What are the boundaries of influence when symbolic authority intersects with tangible political objectives? These questions are not abstract. They go to the heart of how power is exercised, both publicly and behind the scenes. Tucker Carlson's coverage emphasizes these tensions, drawing viewers into a narrative that is as dramatic as it is unprecedented. The emotional stakes are equally high. Supporters of Meghan might feel conflicted, grappling with the possibility that their admired figure pursued political influence in ways that challenge the narrative they've embraced. Critics may feel vindicated, seeing confirmation of suspicions about ambition and calculated action. And for the monarchy, the prospect of a royal using title and public platform to cultivate political influence abroad introduces risks that ripple across perception, protocol, and institutional stability. And yet, despite all the planning, the documents leave tantalizing questions unanswered. How far did Meghan intend to take this? Which contacts would have been critical in moving from strategy to execution? How would public perception have been managed in the face of scrutiny? The files suggest intent, ambition, and preparation, but the ultimate trajectory, how far this alleged plan could have gone, remains shrouded in mystery. But perhaps the most shocking revelation in these documents is the degree of detail regarding timing, positioning, and messaging. Every hypothetical step in the proposed political journey was carefully considered. When to engage with key figures, how to frame public messaging, and how to navigate potential challenges or criticisms. The audacity of imagining a Senate run while balancing the lingering presence of royal duties, albeit formally stepped back, is staggering. The files suggest that ambition, strategy, and timing were all meticulously aligned, leaving viewers and analysts alike wondering how close these plans ever came to realization. And as Tucker Carlson delved deeper into these revelations, one truth became undeniable. Meghan Markle's alleged ambitions extended far beyond charity, media, or even public perception. They hinted at a vision for influence and power that intersected with politics at the highest levels, raising stakes that spanned continents, institutions, and public imagination. But the documents also hinted at a challenge even Meghan could not control: the unpredictable forces of media, scrutiny, and public perception. And it was precisely this tension, between audacious ambition and uncontrollable exposure, that would set the stage for revelations even more shocking, tying together her royal identity, strategic networks, and the bold potential of a political future that few dared imagine. If power is influence, then perception is everything. And for Meghan Markle, the leaked documents Tucker Carlson uncovered suggest that perception was meticulously engineered through an intricate media strategy. Public appearances, interviews, speeches, and social media presence were not just incidental. They were components of a carefully orchestrated plan designed to cultivate credibility, build networks, and shape public opinion, all while advancing private ambitions that few could have imagined. The sophistication, scope, and audacity of this strategy are what make these revelations so compelling. From the outset, Meghan's media presence was impeccable. Every engagement appeared polished, every message delivered with poise, and every appearance seemingly aligned with her charitable initiatives. But the documents suggest that beneath this seamless public persona lay a blueprint for influence. Emails, memos, and strategic notes detail timing, content, audience, and intended outcomes of public appearances, showing a deliberate alignment between messaging and private networking goals. It was not merely about visibility. It was about creating an environment in which perception could translate into opportunity. One email chain, for instance, discussed an upcoming international conference. The memo highlighted potential attendees, suggested topics for panel discussions, and even recommended framing specific talking points to resonate with influential figures in attendance. The subtlety is striking. By delivering speeches on universally appealing causes like gender equality or social justice, Meghan could reinforce her public persona while simultaneously establishing credibility with influential decision-makers. The document even recommended follow-up strategies, ensuring that every interaction could be leveraged to cultivate connections that might support future ambitions. Tucker Carlson noted that the files also referenced the timing of media engagements in relation to private networking efforts. Public appearances were strategically scheduled around key meetings or communications with political operatives, lobbyists, or advisors. The goal, according to the memos, was to maximize exposure while reinforcing credibility, creating a seamless narrative in which public actions aligned with private objectives. This level of foresight and synchronization is rare, even among seasoned political operatives, and it underscores the meticulous planning allegedly behind Meghan's media strategy. The documents also hint at an understanding of narrative framing. Emails discuss the importance of portraying herself as approachable, socially conscious, and credible, while avoiding any appearance of political ambition. It's a delicate balance, maintaining the public image of a duchess turned private citizen, while privately laying the groundwork for influence. The files suggest a sophisticated approach to messaging, one that leveraged media visibility to reinforce credibility, shape perception, and cultivate opportunities, all without drawing unwanted scrutiny. Social media, too, appears to have been a key component. Notes in the files indicate careful consideration of posts, audience engagement, and public response. Timing, content, and tone were all reportedly calibrated to enhance perception, maintain relevance, and subtly reinforce connections with key figures. Even seemingly minor posts, the documents suggest, were evaluated for their potential to support the broader strategy, blending public advocacy with private influence in ways that the casual observer would never suspect. What's particularly striking about this media strategy is its duality. On one hand, Meghan's public narrative was about humanitarianism, advocacy, and empowerment. On the other hand, the documents suggest that these appearances served a parallel purpose, establishing legitimacy, credibility, and networks in political circles. Each speech, panel discussion, or interview was potentially a stepping stone, reinforcing both image and influence. The interplay between public persona and private strategy creates a tension that is both dramatic and unprecedented, challenging assumptions about the role of media in shaping opportunity. Tucker Carlson also highlighted the emotional stakes of this dual strategy. For audiences, the revelation that Meghan may have been carefully orchestrating media appearances to support private ambitions adds a layer of intrigue, but also a sense of betrayal. Admirers who believed in her philanthropic work may feel conflicted, while critics might see confirmation of a calculated, ambitious agenda. The tension between perception and intent becomes central to understanding the impact of these alleged actions, and it's precisely this tension that drives the narrative forward, keeping viewers engaged and questioning. The files go further, discussing potential risks and contingencies. Emails reference how to handle potential media scrutiny, negative press, or public misinterpretation. Strategies for crisis management, narrative control, and message alignment were reportedly considered in advance, illustrating a level of preparation uncommon even in professional political campaigns. This suggests that Meghan, or her team, anticipated challenges and planned accordingly, blending media savvy with strategic foresight in a way that could amplify influence while mitigating exposure. There's also evidence of coordination between media strategy and private networking. Documents describe follow-ups with influential figures after media appearances, leveraging the visibility of public engagements to reinforce private interactions. For example, attending a high-profile conference could provide access to key operatives, followed by discreet meetings or communications that further cultivated relationships. The media became not just a tool for public engagement, but a mechanism for building influence, credibility, and opportunity, a dual-purpose strategy that few could have anticipated. For the audience, the implications are staggering. Meghan's alleged media strategy suggests a deliberate orchestration of perception, combining charisma, visibility, and narrative control to support private objectives. It raises questions about authenticity, intent, and the interplay between public image and private ambition. How much of what is seen in public appearances is genuine advocacy, and how much is a calculated move in a broader strategic plan? These are questions that challenge assumptions and provoke debate, deepening the intrigue of the story. The emotional tension escalates when considering the stakes. A misstep in media strategy could jeopardize credibility, expose private intentions, or attract unwanted scrutiny. The files indicate that Meghan's team reportedly accounted for these risks, carefully managing messaging, timing, and content to maintain alignment between public persona and private objectives. It's a testament to the meticulousness of the strategy and the awareness of potential consequences. And yet, Even with careful planning, the most audacious parts of the strategy are still to come. The media, while a tool of perception and influence, was only one component of a broader plan that reportedly included political networking, strategic alliances, and calculated positioning for potential campaigns. Every appearance, every interview, and every post appears to have been part of a larger puzzle, an interconnected strategy designed to position Meghan for influence, credibility, and potentially unprecedented ambition in the United States.